self-storage owner or operator looking for service providers to help at your facility? Well, the Storage Business Owners Alliance, also known as the SBOA, has you covered. The SBOA is a premier online hub for connecting self-storage owners and operators to industry-leading products and service providers. We provide one-stop shopping for your business with exclusive offers to save time and money. At the SBOA, we believe by coming together, we help owners and operators grow revenue, gain purchasing power, reduce expenses, improve efficiencies, and increase profitability. We also offer many resources such as our conferences and self-storage unlock webinars to help self-storage owners and operators gain the knowledge needed to become more competitive in the industry. To become an SBOA member or to find out more information, please visit www.thesboa.com today. We can't wait for you to join the Alliance.
Good morning, self-storage industry, and welcome back to another episode of the Storage Business Owners Alliance, better known as the SBOA's Self-Storage Unlock. Say that 3 times fast. What a mouthful. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the president of the SBOA. My name is Jessica Johnson. I also sit on the Florida Association board and the Michigan Association board of directors. So if you reside in either of those states, please reach out. Would love to give you more information about joining the associations. And today we've got a great panel of speakers for you, and we are going to talk about mastering the art of handling difficult customers, because they are out there and we do see that with our tenants. So want to give a huge shout out to XPS Solutions. They are our sponsor for today's webinar. So thank you, XPS, for doing that. And then today with us, we have representation from Lighthouse Storage Solutions, Skill Check, and A+ Management Group. Without further ado, I'm going to get us started and just bring up our guest speakers so we can get started today in case any of you out there have questions for us. So up first, I have Carol Mixon with us from Skill Check. Hey, Carol.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Excited to be here with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Carol. Give us a background of who you are, and you've been in the storage industry for quite some time, haven't you?
Yeah, probably older than you. 1984.
Close.
I started with National Self Storage, and I've just done so much in storage, and I just love it. And I wanted to be an opera singer. I don't know if I've ever told you that, but
I know that.
I wanted to be a singer, and then I was like, oh no, I don't want to be in storage. And then they said, oh well, you got to do something during the day. So that's what I don't know. I just love it. I love what we do.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being here today. And I know you can tell us all about difficult customers. I know you've encountered many of them. And then your services with mystery shopping and all that you do, you get to see that side of it too, probably.
Yes. Yeah.
Disgruntled people coming in and how they view, the interaction. So thanks again for being here with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Carol, we'll bring you back up in just a minute. Next up, I have Melissa Huff from Lighthouse Storage Solutions, and Melissa has a consulting company as well. So I'm going to let Melissa tell us all about herself.
Hey, Jess, thanks so much for having me today. I really appreciate the invite, and I think we have an amazing panel. This is going to be so much fun. I've been in the industry for about 16 years now, started out as a property manager, and worked my way into a company where I was running 35 stores in 3 states, and then said, you know what, I'm talking to all these owner operators with my association work and see that they really just need some guidance. So my husband Josh and I broke off and started Lighthouse Storage Solutions. And so we are offering consulting services from operations and employee training through marketing services and website design, things like that. So just love the education piece.
Yes. And you also help with some associations. Tell me about that.
Yes, so I'm the director of the Tennessee and the Louisiana Self-Storage Associations. I've been working with Tennessee since 2014, I believe. So it's
Wow.
been a long time. Been in that education arena for a really long time, and just have a passion for that.
So do we over here at the SBOA, hence why we have this series. So
There you go.
for being here today, Melissa.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Next up, I have the one and only Shannon from XPS Solutions, our sponsor for today. Good morning, Shannon.
Good morning, Jess. Thanks so much for having me. And I'm just going to start by saying it is our pleasure and honor to be able to support what you guys are doing here. We wholeheartedly believe in it and wouldn't have it any other way.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I love it. So my name is Shannon Charbonneau, and I have been with XPS Solutions. I started January 3rd, 2011. After an interview on the day before Christmas Eve. So that was my introduction to self-storage. I think like many that I hear in the industry, I really never, ever thought about self-storage before that time. And then, of course, I started seeing it everywhere. And I have found since that time that this is absolutely my home. Like these women on this panel, I was just telling them, had a wonderful conversation with my husband last night, talking about every single one of them and how excited I was to be able to come and just talk about this. And not to mention customer service. I mean, honestly, I started that, I say, way back in the 1900s. Is my first office job was a customer service rep over the phone. So I have been doing this for a very long time, and I mean it. I just will say that. I just mean it. And I would love, love, love to be able to get everybody pulling in the same direction and supporting people like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It is critical, and I think it fell to the wayside through the COVID period. So we'll talk about that as we go through today's session. But again, Shannon, thanks for being here. And with all of the calls that you guys do, the call reviews, I'm sure you've encountered some disgruntled people over the phone. So we could talk about how we handle those types when they call us angry. So
yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here. And last but certainly not least, I have Miss Stephanie Tharp. Hi, Steph.
Hey, Jess, and thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this group of women. I think we need more women doing this stuff all the time. I'm Stephanie Tharp. I own A+ Management Group. We're a full third-party management company. But I started with United Van Lines as a relocation coordinator, and I worked for them for 6 years. Been in the storage business since 2006. After that, started as a resident manager. You talk about disgruntled people. We had Penske trucks, and we lived on site, and people banged on my door in the middle of the night. So anyway, worked my way up from resident manager all the way up to owner of my own company, and I'm very, very proud of everything. I'm along with Melissa. I'm on the Tennessee Association Board of Directors as an events and education chair. I've worked with Melissa for years. We're like this. I've used Carol services for years. My managers don't like it when they get those reports that Carol's company sends.
Right. I'm sure.
But I'm happy. Yeah, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you so much, Jess, for inviting me to join this great group of women today.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Well, we're going to bring up this great group of women and we're going to get to chatting, and we like to chat. So audience, if you have any questions for the speakers that are here today, I see you guys are typing in the comment section, telling us who you are and where you're from. That's where you're going to ask questions for us. But we're going to dive in. And Shannon, I just made this comment a minute ago about the COVID period, right? I mean, COVID, we had some really high times. We were riding some high waves. Occupancy was through the roof. Most places were 100% occupied. People were on wait lists. So I think customer service went, like I said, totally to the wayside because they were just grinding through getting people in and out. And I think now with what's going on in the current state of the industry with occupancy declining, we really need to service our current tenant base because we're trying to maximize ECRI and things of that nature. So we really need to start taking care of these guys. So Shannon, tell me, I want to start out with, let's start this way. I want everyone to tell me their favorite disgruntled customer service story and how you handled said disgruntled person.
Oh my goodness. I consistently tease John Lindsay that the next book that he writes should be the seedy side of self-storage, and he needs to call me and I'll give him some stories. But I think the one that stands out in my mind the most, that I would consider this to be poor customer service at the store level,
Sure.
was a phone call that we received from a screaming tenant begging for help because the manager of the facility was standing on his car with a baseball bat. So I personally consider that poor customer service on the part of the manager. Now, listen, I say that in jest. We realize and we train our teams here. Everything we do here, we're doing over the phone or between a computer, right? We got a video camera or we've got a keyboard. But what the stores are going through on a day-to-day basis is people 2 feet away from them, hopefully across a counter at best. And so we take that very seriously, right? We don't want to pass along a problem to a live person if we can do anything on our end to deflect that. And hopefully not get to the point where a manager feels threatened to the point that they need to climb on somebody's car with a baseball bat.
So I want to second this, Shannon, real quick. So that's a pretty tense situation, right? Do you have any strategies that you could tell the audience that maybe would have helped de-escalate that tense situation where the person didn't feel like they needed to get up on a car?
I mean, listen, I cannot, again, not having not been in there, that the man who called, just because he's panicking now when there's somebody on his car does not mean that he did not walk into that room trying to get hit with a baseball bat. So
Right.
I'm going to start with the
Good point.
assumption that maybe he did, right?
Sure.
People don't like consequences for sure. But I would say there are some very standard things. When somebody else's tone goes up, bring yours down just a little bit, right? Don't match tone for tone when they're going up. Empathy. I hear you. I understand that you're right. That sounds terrible. I didn't think of that from your perspective. Offer assistance. Let's look at what we can do today. I understand that you're coming with this situation. Let's sit down. Let's talk about this one step at a time. Be very methodical, right? Okay, so on your first day here, you spoke with John and he told you X, Y, and Z, but then on the third day you experienced this. Let's just go in order, like what's happened and what can we address and go from there. Listen, I mean, you can't fix what's truly broken sometimes with individual people, right? There are some people who are just going to come at you and they're not going to be satisfied. But if we de-escalate from the minute, like I can see you're upset and I'm so sorry, I want to help you. Let's sit down and talk about this. Especially if you're at a counter, if you have an opportunity to sit, highly recommend. Highly, highly recommend. Yeah. And then I would say also use verbiage that indicates we're in this together.
Yeah.
Kind of like you can't physically do it maybe, but if you are standing shoulder to shoulder and facing the problem, it's a lot easier to solve a problem than when you're standing and facing each other like you're the problem, right? So verbally, I would say turn the conversation towards, okay, I want to work with you. I have genuinely enjoyed all of our interactions. Let's focus on this issue that we have, and let's address this together. I think that's a pretty quick way to get somebody maybe from here to here. Yeah.
No, I would agree with that. And Melissa, I'm going to come over to you. I want to ask you a question first before you share your story. It's pretty evident when someone's tense, right? Their body language is different. Their tone, like Shannon was talking, was different. Did you, throughout your time, train your managers to kind of have that social awareness of like, this tenant's coming in hot. Like we know they're coming in hot from the second they walk in the door to
Absolutely.
be prepared for how to de-escalate. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've dealt with customers before where when you see them coming into your parking lot, you just need to go lock the door. Like this person just doesn't even need to come in the office because you know what's going to happen. You've already, maybe it's an eviction issue and you've already told them like, you're not even welcome on the property. The next time you come in, I'm going to call the police. So I feel like we've had, varying issues of customer preparedness that the customer that's going to come in and they're going to be in tears because you've charged them a late fee again, the 6th month in a row that they've been late. You've got the customer that's going to cuss you because you've charged them the late fee for the 6th month in a row because they're still late. So you do learn your customers, and you learn how to prepare yourself physically of like, how do I want this interaction to go? Shannon, I think you're exactly right. There's some where sitting down and saying, hey, let's talk about this is a great approach. I've also had other customers though, where standing up and saying, this is where this conversation ends is how you have to approach them. I think every customer is different, and you do have to learn to read the customer. Jess, when you first asked about, calling out a specific customer issue, like 1,000 different scenarios ran through my mind. It's hard to pinpoint one. I think the biggest problem goes back to what our expectations are for our customers. We don't set good expectations, and it's like having a house full of kids and they don't know what the rules are. They're going to go crazy, and you're not going to have any control of the house, and it's just going to be a bumbling mess all the time. And I think we run our facility operations the same way. We don't set clear expectations for what their behavior should be. So they don't know how they're supposed to act. And then we get upset when we're having to diffuse situations or, talk them through their behavior when they've been doing this for the last 6 months and you haven't said anything. You're training your customer to be a bad customer. And we're not putting enough effort in on the front end. So, but I feel like all of the customer service issues that we face, they're all basically the same. You've got a customer that's upset because, there's mice in their unit, or they have a late fee, or you're fixing to sell their stuff. It's all basically the same issues over and over and over again. But I think we're our own worst enemy in that we actually facilitate that issue to build on itself without properly training our customers.
Yeah, definitely. Steph, how about you? You got a favorite one out there you want to share? Or you probably have hundreds just like Melissa does.
I honestly was like, she's saying exactly what I was going to say.
Setting expectations.
I mean, let's be realistic. What do we deal with here? A very small percentage of our customers are bad, upset customers, and they're always mad over their own behavior. It's either because they're going to auction, we're charging them late fees, we've raised their rent, and you have to train your managers how to handle that. Like, for instance, with rental increases, I'm like, okay, here's how you handle it. Manager, you say, yes, Mr. Smith, I understand. But, when you came in, we only raised you this much. We haven't raised you in a year. You're not paying what we're charging online. Your managers can play a humongous role in keeping those customers calm. People that come in that they have damage in their unit and they didn't get insurance, or they didn't provide insurance, and they're mad at you. It's like, you opted out, or you refused, or you didn't, you were offered it. So there's, we could sit here and talk about the scenarios of bad customers for hours, because we all have thousands of stories, I'm sure. But I think that setting the expectations, I literally just had written that down before she brought you on. In the very beginning, you have to say,
this is what happens when you talk together a lot.
Yeah, these are the rules. You're late on the 5th. There is no grace period. Your rent's due on the 1st. You're going to get a late fee on this day. We're going to send you to auction. And you want to talk about something the sob stories. Oh my gosh. I've heard thousands of them. So yes, my sister Melissa here, I think we're from the same. People think she's my daughter, actually.
That's awesome. I love that. Carol, how about you? Do you want to share something with us?
Yes, I have one in particular that's kind of for me was a big deal, because I just got off a plane. I had 6 stores in Hawaii. So I went to my first one, and I got there, and all the people were sitting watching the video or the cameras. And I was like, hello, hello, I'm here. and why are you all standing around there? And I'm looking at the displays weren't as big, because they're kind of showing everywhere. And so I'm like, what's going on? And here comes a really upset customer, and she is a pharmaceutical rep. And I had over 80 pharmaceutical reps at that location, because we were the only place that had air conditioning at the time in Hawaii. And so the girl comes in and she goes, oh, I'm glad you're here. She goes, I've complained about this lady. She keeps coming in and she changes her clothes and she sits in the thing, and she causes problems all the time. And I don't feel like I have to watch her, changing her clothes. She said she strips all the way down. And so I'm like, okay, now I know what all these people were watching. So then I go down. I said, I'll take care of it. And I go down and I talk to her. I said, hey, here, you can't do this. We've got people here and it's just not a place. And I said, we do have a bathroom that you could go change in. And the managers also said she messes that up when she goes in there too, right? It's a mess. And she kind of bathes in there. So anyway, so I said, hey, you can't do this anymore. And she goes, this is my unit. I can do whatever I want with it. And I said, well, I'm going to call the police. I just think that, we're at an impasse here where, you're causing problems with other customers. And she goes, oh, you can call them. They're not going to do anything because it's private property. I was like, oh man, she's done this before.
Yeah.
I'm like, just a minute, I'll be right back. So I went to the office and I, go down, get on the software and I print out a rent increase letter. For $300 on her. And it was just a small unit. So like a cubby whole almost. And so she goes, you can't do this. You can't do this to me. I said, hey, it's private property. I have the ability to, and you see, you're causing problems. I don't want to lose my 80 people who, are decent people and not abusing the place here and not, holding up the bathroom for an hour and this, that, and the other. And she's like, you can't do this. And so then she packs up all her stuff and walks out. And the manager was like, oh my gosh, I wish I'd done that months ago. Because that is one way that we can actually get rid of someone. We can go up on their rent or limit the times that they can get into the store. Or, we have some tools. And it doesn't have to be mean or anything like that. I mean, I think, there's some situations where people, cause harm or scare other people. So we have to address that, but it is not always easy. I will grant that. Sometimes I take my managers down with me because I think, okay, we both need to go. We're not just one of us. Let's both go down there. So.
Well, and that's a good backup strategy too, to have, like, if there are multiple people on property and a aggressive tenant comes, at least you have some backup there. But that's not always the case, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes it is just one person at the facility. So that can become very daunting for that one person to have to deal with. Yeah. Does anyone have a story where they took a pretty negative situation and it ended up resulting into something positive that was good and could have maybe even turned into like a referral in the future of them referring business to you? Does anyone have any scenarios like that?
I do.
I do too. Yeah.
Yeah. Steph, go ahead and share.
So we had a tenant that was overseas, and it was a big issue with the payment. We kept saying, once a tenant goes 31 days past due, we will only accept cashier checks or certified checks. Okay. Obviously, because I've done this 1,000 times, we won't take a credit card over the phone. Anyway, we do not have ACH, so we don't have that ability. So he went online and wrote a 1-star review about us. And so we're trying to figure out, the guy wants to pay us. And so finally, we called our bank and said, can we send him a wire routing number so he can pay? And anyway, after about a week and a half of trying to get this all taken care of, we finally got it taken care of. And he was able to pay. We weren't trying to punish him. We were just going, we're limited and these are our rules. And, we didn't understand why he couldn't, send us money from there, or, we just didn't understand. So he went on with excuse after excuse. And I honestly didn't think we would hear from him again. But anyway, we finally got it resolved. He went back on Google and changed his review to a 5-star and said, they really did a great job helping me resolve a situation. And I responded and said, thank you so much for your patience with us during this navigation of this situation we've never had to deal with before. We're so glad we could work things out. I didn't ask him to change that review. No one said anything to him, but it was, and I get those. I'm sure y'all get those every time you get a review, you get that email from Google. And I was like, oh, this is great. So, but he was very upset. We were trying, but anyway, it all worked out.
How refreshing that he was trying to give you money.
I know, because that's usually not the case. I'm like, okay, he's really, but a lot of times they say that and they aren't. They never
Right.
do. You know,
Right.
they absolutely don't.
Right.
So I was pleasantly surprised that he actually did want to give us money and actually did give us money.
Yeah, that's awesome. While Melissa goes in her story, I just want to let the audience know I did post a poll question. If you could answer this, do you utilize any programs to monitor your customer service, like mystery shopping, like Carol's team does, my team does, call reviews like Shannon's team can do, you know, through the call center when we're recording calls, we can obviously go back and listen to them. But any other programs out there that any of you might use outside of the ones I just mentioned, I would love to hear from you. And audience, if you want to type in a scenario maybe that you've had at your facility recently that was a customer service issue and how it went, or how you would, or if you want suggestions from us on how you would handle that in the future, we'd be happy to, you know, answer that for you. So if you could put that out there, that'd be great. Melissa, go ahead with your negative to positive story. And Steph, I love that, by the way, because I mean, if you can go from a 1 to a 5-star, like that's optimal, right?
That was huge.
Yeah, and that's physical for the, you know, the everyone to see because it's out there on Google, right? So, and we'll talk a little bit about some Google approaches here in a minute. So go ahead, Melissa.
Yeah, so mine's one of those confrontation things that I was talking about earlier, Shannon. So I had a gentleman that was very hard to deal with. Every phone conversation I'd ever had with the man was just tense. He was just not a happy person. One day his credit card expired, I guess, on his automatic payment, and he came into the office. He was really upset. He'd gotten a late fee, and through the course of the conversation, you know, he's ranting and raving about this credit card. You know, I keep offering to update it for him, and he's mad. I'm just not going to do this anymore. And he ends up throwing his checkbook at me across the counter. And this guy had been in the military. He had been injured and had lost part of his arm. So I didn't know what to do, didn't really know how to respond to this guy. Here I have a disabled veteran, and he's extremely upset, and he just screams at me, basically, just fill out my check for me, because he physically could not do it because he, you know, had lost his arm. And but I had to make a choice. This guy was really verbally abusive. He was just not a happy guy. I stood up, handed his checkbook back to him, and told him if he asked me, I would be happy to help him. And he looked at me for a second and was like, slid it back across the counter. Will you fill that out for me? Okay, here we go. It wasn't really nice, but he asked me, right? So I filled out his checkbook, and we took care of our transaction and offered again to set up that auto pay. Still turned that down. Every single month that man came back with his checkbook and would hand it to me to fill out his check. And up until that point, he had never paid by check. He'd always done the auto draft. I'd never seen him before. But after that, every single month he came back and handed me his checkbook. And was a little bit chatty. Still wasn't like, you know, super gooey, nice and sweet, but it was an interaction that I could tell he kind of appreciated, because somebody was taking the time just to say hello to him. And it actually, he turned out to be a fantastic customer, stayed with me for a really long time. And but every month I got to see him and fill out his checkbook. So, but that did take.
It's fantastic, because we don't talk often enough. I think every single person that you talk to is going through something, right?
Yes.
His
Yes.
was very loud and out front, right? You know, he's a veteran, you know, he's disabled, you know, he's got some anger that's around that, and you can see all of that. Most people, they don't wear that sign on their chest, right? But they have something. And, you know, and how easy was it just to set a small boundary? Right.
Yeah.
And if
And
he had
that's all
gone
I had
past
to do.
sometimes that's all you have to do. I'm so proud of you, first of all, for that, because that's hard.
Me.
When someone's in your face, that's difficult. But and then my thought was, as you were telling your story, that was probably the highlight of his month. There's a reason.
Well, and I think it was because he would come back in and he just wanted somebody to talk to at the end of the day. I think he needed that interaction, but he also needed a boundary. You're
Mhm.
exact. I love that. He needed a boundary just like I did. And then once we had that established, we were good to go because he knew what expectation I was setting for how I was going to be treated.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
he needed
Yeah.
that evidently. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
How much do all of you enable or empower your staff? Because, like we have standard operating procedures, we have guidelines, right? So we can't, to make someone happy, discount until the cows come home, or, like, to what level do you see where I'm going with this question? Sorry, I'm like asking it in a really bad way, but to what level do you all empower your staff or your managers to maybe make the situation better? If it is a discount or if it is extending their date by a couple days, is it something they have to like go through an escalation process to you, or do they have like a limited area where they can kind of play in? Carol, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I do like to give my managers, especially the seasoned ones, when they're new, they may not really know as much, and I like them to communicate with me. But the ones that are seasoned, I like them to. I said, what would you like to see, or how can I help, and how we can get this customer not to give us a bad review, because now that's a horrible thing. So yes, I try to make sure that I'm asking what the manager would like to do about a problem, and not just, tell them that, we're just going to kick them out or whatever. But, after I told the first story, because but I think there's some triage to this too. I even have, like, on my front door of my store, I have if you are happy, tell a friend. If not, call this number. And I have an 800 number that goes, to my office. And then, because I feel like sometimes we don't know, that sometimes the managers don't tell us some of the things that are happening, or, the customer that the manager rented it on a Friday afternoon, they forgot to take the overlock off so the customer could move in, and, there they are with their people and their truck loaded and stuff like that. So I think those things, I want to say, hey, manager, you fix this, and, give them a month's free, they have the power to do, things like that. And I want them to make it all right, and smooth it over too. Right. Because so many, I think what we've already talked about is those reviews, they're hard to get rid of. I've had some bad reviews that were not even true.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was trying to think of the recent stat that I read too. It's like for every 1-star review, it needs to be combated with at least at least like 10 4-point something and above. I don't know if it's 3 or 5, but it's so one bad, you have to net 10 good to kind of
Yes.
carry that one bad.
Mhm.
So I mean, that one bad can really do you in. And we're going to talk about reviews here in a second. And I'm going to put this poll question out here for the audience. Are you monitoring and responding to your reviews? And if any
Say yes.
no, I'm calling after today's webinar, but hopefully the answer is yes. But let's be transparent. If the answer is no, that's fine. We have time to fix that. And we're going to talk about the importance of fixing that. So Melissa, talk me through Google reviews, why we need them, why we want them, and why they are critical to our business.
Well, I think every single one of us, when you're choosing a restaurant to go to, what's the first thing you do? You pull it up on Google and you see how many stars that are there, right? When you go to Amazon, I'm looking for a new office desk. I'm looking for all the reviews. That's the first thing I go to. I don't even go to the description of the item. I want to see what the reviews are first. And we're just kind of geared that way now. So your reviews, that is, we've always said, like, customer referrals are the most important type of promotion that you can have for your business, right? To have that other person that will speak on your behalf. That's what reviews are. They're just nice, short, concise. Here's my opinion. And we like to have other people's opinions, and we really trust in those stars. So if you don't have good reviews, you're going to have a big issue. But even more important, I think, is how you respond to those reviews.
Yeah.
When you have that bad one, go out and talk about it. It's okay, because we're not perfect. And in fact, if I have only 5-star reviews, I'm going to question that. Are those real? Because nobody's perfect all the time. And we are bringing in customers when they are at their worst. And because of all the stresses that they are going through, those interactions are not always going to be great. Sometimes they are really hard just because of the nature of the situation itself. And sometimes they just can't be pleased because of their level of stress and what they're going through, or their expectations might be wrong. So when they give a negative review, we've got to go out and publicly say, hey, I'm so sorry about this. Let's fix this. Give me a call, and take that conversation back offline, of course, because you don't want to have a back and forth that everyone can see, but you do want to have that very public acknowledgement of, you had a rough time with us, and I am so sorry. Let me fix that. And if I see that kind of a response as a consumer, then I know that the business owner cares, and they are going to make a difference. They're going to go out of their way to provide good customer service, because you can even see that they are trying to fix mistakes that they have made. And so managing those reviews, super, super important every single time. Respond to every 5-star with a thank you, and respond to every 1, 2, and 3-star with a, how can I make this better? What can I do to get a 5 out of this? How can we fix this situation?
Absolutely. And just for the audience, so they know, yes, you can take the personalized approach, and you, owner, if you have one facility and feel like you can manage it, you can do that response. But as you start to grow and scale and have more and more facilities, there are automated systems out there to help you with review. And it's not a matter of like, you just have to deploy something like that. You're never going to have the time, if you have 25 facilities, to monitor all of those and thoughtfully and mindfully respond to all of them. So again, there's automation that can help with that. I love what Melissa said, because, and there are stats too that, I think it's in the higher 80 percentile that people, they trust an online review just as much as they trust like a word of mouth recommendation. Like, hey, me calling Melissa, like, you got to try this restaurant. It was so good, when they see that. And then also when they see the public empathy of wanting to cure the situation, that builds a little bit of trust and credibility. Like Melissa was saying with me, like, okay, they failed here, but they're at least willing to cure it. Right. And recognize that they did wrong here. So I want to circle back too to something you said, Melissa. And I always forget to mention this. We are dealing with people that are in a not so fun situation, right? They're in the process of moving, or maybe there's divorce, maybe there's been death, the 4 Ds that we like to talk about, displacement, that they have to downsize, whatever that may be. Those situations aren't fun. I just moved out of a storage unit a couple weeks ago in the 100-degree weather in Florida, and I was drenched in sweat and dust, and it was not a fun process. So, you have to have an empathetic approach to them, basically, as they walk into the door. They could be the nicest person, but on that back end, they are probably going through something that's not so fun at that current time. Even if it's the joy of moving, that's still a bear of a process. Even if we're moving into our brand new luxury home, the process of moving from one to the next is stressful. So I think that's a good approach, is to always just kind of have that mindset of empathy, and however you can train your staff to do that is great. Steph, talk to me about kind of like your training program that you have for your staff that kind of goes into the customer service, and kind of what to expect of them and of said tenants that could possibly come in.
Well, the biggest training is on the front end when that customer comes to the door or makes that phone call. I learned a lot from Carol because we mystery shop, but you've got to teach them, listen. One thing that we know is that obviously our generations are changing at who's renting and who our customer is in 2024. It's totally different than it was 10 years ago. You've got people that don't want to talk to a person at all, and that's okay. You have to be available everywhere for those types of people. So you've got to ask the questions, have you stored before? Yes. Okay. What were your issues? What were your concerns? What did you deal with before? If they say, well, security was a big thing, or, the rent went up every 3 months, or whatever those are, then you can talk about those on the front end. So we do a big training on the beginning of how to handle those customers. But I have to say that customer service must continue throughout the entire process. Yes. You can't just start with it. You've got to be there. I used to love to get on the golf cart and just go around. Number one, they see your presence, or they'll see you sweeping units, and you get that rapport. make notes, hey, how's your mom doing? Or, hey, how's your kid? You just had a grandbaby. Things like that make it personal, because there are still people that I like that. I like to walk into a store and get attention, like they care and they want my business. And a lot of bad reviews say, well, they didn't even want my business. It was like they didn't even care. So that's where you go back to those companies. How does Amazon handle it when you have a return? Oh my gosh, they're amazing. You got to look at those companies, like Chick-fil-A. Oh, my pleasure. You guys, that's the most remarkable thing I've ever heard. Everyone that goes through their drive-through feels like they're so special. So I think, I think we're, about 50-50. We've got people wanting to come in. So you've got to teach those. And it's an ongoing process, because every time I think I've heard it all, no, something else comes up. So then you have to train them how to handle escalations. But I will say, I back my managers 99.9% of the time. And those customers don't want to get to me, because I will straight up tell them how it is. And we also have language in our rental agreement that addresses verbal abuse and threatening behavior. So that is a termination of lease immediately. And we have it in writing, and they signed it. So that makes it a little bit easier. Anyway.
I love that you mentioned that. And I love that you have that stuff. And anything you put in that lease, first of all, please have it reviewed by a self-storage attorney, first and foremost. We know reputable ones. We can recommend them to you.
Yes, mine was done by an attorney, a very known attorney.
There's several in our industry. Not to say
Yes.
that, non-industry attorneys are not as good, but I mean, these guys study the law for each and every state, and each and every state is different to some level. Lots of similarities, but lots of intricacies and differences too. So what that lease will protect you, in the long run, especially like Steph said, they've signed it, like they've acknowledged it. They probably didn't even read that line, but at least you have that to back up and say, wait a second, you've come in 3 times this week and been verbally aggressive to, my manager, my property person, whatever it is, and it's just not going to fly. And then you can go through the termination process in the right way from there. Right. So,
well, the other thing really quickly is it is absolutely urgent and important that every one of your staff knows their lease and they know your lien laws. Yes. You cannot enforce rules that you don't understand. They need to know what limitation of value is and why that's important. They need to, every single thing, in that rental agreement, and especially knowledge is power. So you can handle people with your knowledge. If somebody comes in and says, it's illegal for you to ask for my social security number. No, it's my policy to rent here. You have to provide that to us, period. You don't have to rent here, but it's my policy if you want to do business with me.
Right.
That's I'm sorry. I'm not very nice.
No, you are. You're setting very, very clear boundaries, Steph.
Yes. I'm very clear on my boundaries.
Right. Yeah. That's the 0.1%, Stephanie. Everybody else just simply toes the line, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Yes. It makes it so much easier.
About having in the lease that you're not going to put up with any, abusive behavior and things like that. Obviously, being in a call center, again, it's just different for our team because we're not making any decisions for you. Our job is to say, this is the rule, and we're going to tell you what the rule is. I can't offer to let them, like Carol talked about, I can't offer to let them give them free month or anything like that. That is outside of our boundaries. But what I can do is train our team that we do not ask anybody to be verbally abused over the phone either. So we give them verbiage to use. Essentially, I am happy to help you if you can bring that down. But if you're going to continue to talk like that, I cannot help. Right. And I'm going to disconnect this call. And I can tell you that there will never, ever be an XPS person who is in trouble for disconnecting a call where someone was verbally abusive or, just couldn't get their act together on their language. And yes, Jennifer Downer, clear as kind. Right. So we're just clear. Right? We're just clear. I would love to help you if you can get your stuff together. Right.
But you can only be clear if you know what the expectations are as the manager and what you're supposed to be relaying to the customer. And I think that's a training issue that a lot of managers are up against, because I've done several trainings with different companies where I sit down and go through the lease. That's part of my operations training. Is I want to make sure the manager knows what it is they're renting. Okay, let's talk about this. And we break down the lease, and they're like writing notes furiously going, I didn't know that was in there. Had no idea. So they're having the customers sign a lease. They don't even understand themselves. So it is impossible for them to reliably and consistently enforce those rules and set those clear expectations for good customer behavior because they don't know what the rules are themselves. So we are doing ourselves, like I said before, just a big disservice. We're not we don't even have the ability to train our customers the right way because we haven't trained our managers the right way.
I see a lot of that. It's sad. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see a lot of owners, and we see this, see a lot of owners that don't know what they're doing. I mean, respectfully, they just don't know. Like Melissa gets 1,000 phone calls, with Tennessee about the lien law. Why do you not know this? How long have you been in business? What do you mean you're just going to throw it away? No, it's crazy. I mean, that's a whole other session, Jess.
It is. And I think everyone from the top down at a facility should know that lease intimately and know the lien laws and the state laws intimately. And a great way to do that is be part of the National Association and be part of your state level associations, attend educational events. I mean, we constantly are going to bat legislatively against, things that are coming out there that are just absurd. I mean, here in Florida right now, we're still fighting being able to list in the newspaper, the auctions. And it's like, we're in a digital age and we still have to list in a newspaper. Like, I don't even open a newspaper anymore unless I'm packing something up with it or need it for stuffing of some sort. So it's just wild what some of these, a particular congressman, woman, whoever it may be, decides that, self-storage is not right for their municipality, and they will fight you on it. And their reasons why, I mean, we see it all the time across the United States, sadly. I'm kind of going through this right now. So this will be a fun one. And Carol, I'll start with you. So we have an issue going on right now where we've offered some resolution to said issue, and the person on the other end is just not willing to accept any of the solutions, all of which are extremely fair. They're just not willing to accept. So what do we do in that scenario when the customer is like, I don't accept your terms or your resolution to the situation? How do you proceed from there?
Well, one of the things that I do is I've learned over the years to just ask, because sometimes I might have given away a lot more than they're even asking for.
That's true too. Yeah.
And I say to the managers, have you asked, what will make you happy, or how can we resolve this and not have it go any further? And what can we do? And sometimes they're realistic and sometimes they're not. Okay. I mean, especially if someone's living in the union, you can't really have that or whatever. But generally speaking, asking them first, right, is a really great way. And you may think, wow, that would have been easy had we just not, done that. One guy just said, hey, if you could just get your manager out here and change the bulb in my room, my, space, I would be happy. But I keep asking and asking and asking, and I put a bad review on. Yeah. Because but the problem was from the manager side, because I listen to the managers too. They said, well, we can't coordinate anything with him, and he can't, we have to get in there. And so he has to open it up, and then the, guy has to be here to do it. And, so it was just, sometimes just, we miscommunicate, and with and let things get into something where it goes to a bad review. And you don't want that. You want to try to, get over. And that's why sometimes I feel like if the managers are too close to it and are sensitive about it or are pissed, let's just say they're mad, and they can't deal with it. They're just so frustrated that they need a little help. And so then I say, but I will say, I also always start with that. Be a good neighbor. And here's what you need to do, sort of like summarizes. And I put it, in SiteLink, it's like, you cannot do this. You cannot do, I put it all positive. Please don't let your dogs or your kids out at the property when you're loading and unloading. Right. So those are just, I try to change everything to the positive, because I think sometimes the managers are just a little too close and they get angry, they get their back up about it. It's hard.
Yeah, that makes sense.
True. Yeah.
And then sometimes they get mad at me because I, do give them too much, or I'm like, well, if you had resolved it, I wouldn't have had to come in and do this. I was going to say one other thing quick, just that because you've asked. I did a on-site shop for StoreQuest,
Sure.
and this girl was really, really good. And I said, hey, I noticed when I was, pulling up I was getting trying to get to her store. I looked, she had like 70 Google reviews. I was like, wow, how did you get so many Google reviews? She goes, well, we had a contest. And she said, I asked every single customer. And I gave them a little thing here's how you do it. And we're having a contest. And, it's really important to me. And if I get to go to Vegas, if I win or whatever, so that she was all excited about it. So I think sometimes even, taking our staff and making good service a priority.
Yes.
And they tried to do it with reviews and a trip, stuff like that. But, and sometimes I think I overlook sometimes. I ask people, if we were to get something, what would you like to do? And one guy years ago, we gave him a John boat. If he got, what a John boat is.
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
He asked for a John boat. And we said, listen, if you can rent this thing up, and the owner's like, I'll give him a John boat, but if he can rent this. He rented it up so quickly, and boy, that boat made him so happy. And but I do think asking customers and your managers, what can we do? But there's not always a way you can make people happy. That's just. I have 2 ex-husbands, so I know. You can do all that you think you can do, and then there's just a point where you may have to let them go, or do you know what I mean?
That's true, Carol. And we always talk about what is your desired outcome?
Yes.
And it's like the case where Melissa mentioned, when somebody's coming and you feel the need to lock the door, your desired outcome is not to keep them as a happy tenant for the next 5 years.
Right.
Your desire in that case is for them to leave. So your behavior needs to, your service that you're providing is according to that, right?
Yes.
Sometimes you are trying to turn that into a positive situation or discover what the real issue is. But sometimes, especially for you ladies who are on site, personal protection is number one.
Absolutely.
Right? Thankfully, at least I hope most of the time that's a very minimal amount, right? Most of the time we're just dealing with people who are cranky. Not dangerous.
Yeah.
So
there are dangerous people out there.
There are.
There is a percentage.
Many years ago with one of our team members was unfortunately shot and killed. So it can happen.
Wow.
That's a very egregious situation and pretty isolated. You don't hear that very often, but it happens, and it happened to us. So I always love talking with Jim Mooney, especially on the insurance side. He does a presentation on when you think this can't happen to you. We've seen entire buildings go up in flames from a contractor flicking a cigarette on the ground. I mean, It happens out there. So again, make sure you're protected in all ways through your lease. Have insurance, obviously property insurance, even down to tenant insurance, tenant protection, to make sure their stuff is in good hands. Because I mean, at the end of the day, you can create an interaction with people, but this isn't an exciting thing, like a pair of Nike shoes or a new Louis Vuitton purse. This is a blank room where you get to put your stuff in it, right? But I mean, this is people's treasured belongings. Their mind if they're putting it away because they want it for future use, so you have to take that approach. Carol, can you explain? Muhammad is asking the question of what
John boat.
Did you say that?
The John boat.
Oh, a John boat.
A John boat. It's a flat bottom. It's a flat bottom boat that people fish from. It's you see them in Walmart, used to, or you can, they used to sell some of them, but they're inexpensive little boat that he could go out in.
Yeah.
That's cute.
Well, that's going over and above for sure. Yeah. But like you said, Carol, it has to be within reason. If they come in and say, I want to live in my unit for 3 months, the answer has got to be no to that one, right? But can I get a 50% discount, something like that? That's something certainly that everyone could consider. So, Oh wait, here we've got a comment. Let's see what
Yeah.
this.
Mm.
Not long after we opened, I had a customer living in a unit. When I tried to evict them, they came into my office screaming at me and threatening to do actual harm to me. I carry pepper spray with UV marking now. I mean, you do have to protect yourself, and it's sad that it has to go to that level. But I mean, especially if you lock them out, you increase their rates. They're gonna come, they're gonna be very ticked off. But again, there's situations that you know, you just don't have to deal with as a business owner, manager, anything of the above. So,
Yes, Noel.
Yes, it will.
It's little
well, ladies,
bitty.
we only have a few minutes before we close out today. Thank you again for all of your insight. Any closing comments that anyone wants to say as it relates to customer service and just dealing with those difficult customers that can be out there?
I do. I would say, don't let them outlove you.
There you go.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
If you come at all of these situations with love and respect,
Positive.
and just, you know, again, not all of them win. You can't win them all, right? But I think if you approach all of them with that same kind of love and respect, it goes a really long way.
Yeah, taking the higher road, even when you don't want to, but you
Right.
probably should, because it's the professional and right thing to do, you know?
Right. And I think Shannon kind of touched on this earlier. What is your outcome that you're wanting to have from this interaction with this customer? What behavior change is it that you're wanting to see from that customer? How do you need to change your reaction to them to push them to that behavior? Because in every interaction that we have with our customers, we are training them to be the customer that we want them to be.
Yes.
So make sure that you are adjusting your responses to them to guide them the way you want them to go, and set those clear expectations.
Yeah, definitely. Well, awesome. Thank you, ladies, so much for being here. Before we conclude, a couple quick announcements. What are we, ladies, like a week and a half away from the National SSA
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
audience?
10 days. Yeah.
10 days. We'll be in Vegas. If you guys are out there, please stop by and see us. The SBOA will be at booth number 108. Shannon, not sure if you know your booth number, or Melissa, if you guys have a booth out there or not, but I know you'll be milling around. Steph, not sure if you're coming or not. Hopefully
I'm not coming this year.
Bummer. Carol's teaching a session out there.
Yes, on guns, handling guns and self-storage. with my
How to shoot those customers.
with my son. So I'm the first time I've ever been able to with my son, and he's the expert in this. So I'm really excited to be, and the SSA loved the presentation, so I'm excited.
Awesome.
Cool.
When is that session, Carol, for the audience?
I think it's like 10:30 on Tuesday or Wednesday. Ooh, I really don't know.
I'm going to have to check that one out. That'll be great.
Yeah.
So Josh and I do have a booth. It's actually the Storage Gives booth. We are working with Lonnie right now. I'm just kind of working with Storage Gives. So we will be next to the registration check-in area. So definitely stop by and see us. So we'd like to hand out some swag.
Melissa, give me a 30-second elevator pitch on what Storage Gives is for the audience members that don't know.
Oh, Storage Gives, fantastic organization. First of all, every single dollar that comes into Storage Gives, 100% of that goes to their causes. There is no overhead. All of the overhead is handled by personal donation. So you know that your money is going straight to the foundations that you want to support. There are 8 causes. We have, I'll see if I can name them all. I know we have a sex trafficking prevention. It's called Sparrow Foundation. We've got Water for Life. We've got Homes for Our Troops. We've got Feeding the Children. There's breast cancer research, a whole bunch of them in there. 8 fantastic causes that Storage Gives supports. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a session. Find out more.
yeah, please. And we love Storage Gives.
Yes, Jennifer, thank you.
We are very active with Storage gives. We love that charity, especially for the fact that 100% all goes back to whatever
Yes.
charity of choice it is. We love that fact. I have a session on Friday at 9 a.m. bright and early. Bring your time. I'll bring your water. I'll probably have some for you. It's all about knowing your audience, how to market to different generations, because let's face it, different generations talk
That's true.
different. If I told my dad this food is bussin', he'd probably be like, "What the hell does that mean?" And I didn't even know.
You do not want your facility to be Skibbity, Ohio. I'm just saying, okay?
My kid had to tell me what that meant. So again, even our verbiage and the way we speak is different from generation to generation. The way we dress, the way we talk, the music we like, etc. So I'm going to have a pretty fun session all around different generations on Friday. Lots of events going on. If you're a female like this group here, there's Women's Council networking events on Thursday. Please join that. If you're under the age of 40, sadly, I aged out 3 years ago, but you can join the Young Leaders. The Young Leaders is a great organization. You have to be under the age of 40. They have education and networking events on Thursday as well while we're out there. And Ballard's our keynote speaker for the event. I mean, it's going to be a great event. So hopefully we see you in Vegas in 10 days. If you are an enhanced SBOA member, you should have received an invite about our event that we're having at the Eiffel Tower in Paris. The Paris Hotel on Tuesday night. XPS is part of that with us. They help sponsor that event with us. It's going to be a fantastic event. So please check your inbox every Tuesday for the SBOA newsletter. All of this information is always in there. Everyone, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to close us out with a fun customer service call that we recorded during one of our mystery shopping. So stay tuned and listen to that. We'll see you guys back in 2 weeks on September the 12th. After SSA, well, actually, I guess that's like 3 weeks away.
Yeah.
We have another great webinar for Self-Storage Unlocked. And that one on the 12th is going to be local consumer reviews, insights, and strategies for self-storage. Again, we're going to dive deep into the review service and why that's important. And we want Google reviews. It helps feed Google, which it helps feed SEO. Just as long as you can keep feeding that Google beast, it's a good thing. So ladies, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Bye, ladies.
If you
See
care.
everyone.
246.
246. We'll
You got
see.
it.
Yep.
Yay.
Bye,
Bye,
ladies.
everyone.
Okay, see ya.
Thank you for calling self-storage. This is how may I help you?
And do you guys have any storage available, spots available?
You said you're looking for a parking space?
No, I need some storage. I'm moving to town, and I need to put my house in there, or my apartment, I guess I should say.
Okay, absolutely. Are you looking for an air-conditioned unit or a non-climate?
I think non-climate. I don't think anything in there is probably that, sensitive.
All right, and so with that, our non-climate units with the drive-up access, we have the largest being 10 by 35s, and then down from that we have 10 by 30s, 10 by 20s, and 10 by 15.
Maybe a 10 by 15. I mean, actually a 10 by 20.
A 10 by 20? All right, and those are starting at $269 base.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
You too.